Spike. I was curious, with Unfrosted coming out in the past year and a half, we've seen a lot of corporate biopics, and it almost seems like this is a parody of them, but the timelines don't really line up. Is this just like really like funny timing to where we got all these very self-serious corporate biopics, and then we have this completely off the walls one for Pop-Tarts here?
From the very start, we never set out to make a biopic about the true history of the Pop Tart. It was how many of these origin pictures were out there was completely irrelevant to what we were doing. What we set out to do was to make a Seinfeld in tone comedy about the Pop Tart origin story as we would have seen it. In fact, if we had been doing the show back in the 90s and had a Pop Tart story in Seinfeld, it would have come out like this.
And there's a really funny element to this where it's almost kind of like Forrest Gumping through like breakfast history, where we see how That's Great is found. We see the origins of Tang. There's a lot of little throwaway like origin stories throughout. How is it kind of placing in those little breakfast nods? They're so fun to see throughout the film.
It was, the whole movie was just us getting together during the pandemic to have some sort of social life and to talk about things and laugh. And we started talking about this idea and we started writing it down. And to be honest, we never thought we were really going to make it. It was just something to do while all of us were hunkered down waiting for this pandemic to end. So, those little things that you mentioned, again, I harken back to writing with Jerry and the staff on Seinfeld. It's the same thing. We delight in just making up things and making up history if we find it funny. Is that how that's great was discovered? No. But Thurl Ravenscroft was a real character. He did play Tony the Tiger, and he was a serious actor, like Hugh Grant portrays in the movie. So there are elements of it that are very, very factual. But again, like Jerry said right from the start, and he's always been like this, whatever's funniest is going to be in the script. It doesn't matter if it's true. If it's funny, we're going to do that.
I love that attitude. And well, what's incredible is you have just a who's who of comedy in this cast. And two of the highlights were these two little kids that are going in the garbage, you know, like rooting through garbage looking for breakfast
Yeah.
pastries. How did you find these two kids? They are so fantastic in this movie.
Yeah, Butchie and Kathy, Eleanor Sweeney, Bailey Sheets. We auditioned, and very quickly we saw these young actors and went, "There you go." It was actually some of the easiest casting in the movie. They each stood out in their respective part. They were each such a delight to have on set. The scene you're talking about, the dumpster scene, required what we thought was going to be some stunt work, jumping out of the garbage truck and into the dumpster, and they were all about doing the stunt themselves. They'd been watching too much Tom Cruise Mission Possible, and I was like, yeah. Let us try it, and we're okay. Just don't hurt yourself. And they, of course, just leaped in, leaped out. It was really fun to have them on set. They're great kids, and they I think infuse that kind of fun 1960s breakfast cereal innocence and cartoony attitude in the movie. I'm so grateful that they're both in it because they really balance out all of the older funny people. At the end of the day, the early 60s, 70s breakfast cereal was about kids. And, they're a big part of this movie.
Yeah, they're so fantastic. And I think the one scene that has really stuck with me and just keeps making me laugh every time I think about it was the funeral scene where you fill it up with milk and the cereal. That is, how is the logistics of figuring out getting a casket? I'm sure it wasn't actually floating, but like, how is it filming that sequence? That's so funny.
First of all, credit to Jerry who persevered with this scene. And I'll confess there were times where I didn't believe that this scene was going to be worth the time and money in the movie. And Jerry said no, because we're making this scene. It's going to be great. And now he was right. It's one of the funniest scenes in the movie. And you're right. We had to decide: are we shooting this practical? In other words, are we going to dig a hole and try to fill it with milk, and what happens when you pour white milk and there's dirt and worms and everything? Or are we going to CGI, and how do we keep that from not looking fake? So believe it or not, there was a lot of Star Wars level visual effects meetings talking about how to pour milk on the casket. And it was one of the last visual effects that we finished in the movie, of which there were a lot of visual effects. There are explosions, there are all sorts of things. But that one, I think, from beginning to end, may be the longest, most expensive visual effect.
That's so funny. And the cast here is just phenomenal. And John Hamm, his scene is just fantastic. He has that great line, you will never swim the English Channel and then drown in champagne. How is it just seeing him work? Because he's just a delight in that sequence.
John Hamm he feels like he's in everything. Every time I turn on my TV, he's in everything, and he is everybody in this cast showing up to work every day was really like a comedy writer's dream come true for me to be, you walk in one day, there's Melissa McCarthy, and she's making us laugh with her improvised lines, and the next day you've got John Hamm in there, and then you've got Cedric the Entertainer. Every day was like, it was such a dream job for all of us to come and show up for that. And that scene you're talking about is a bit of a spoiler. I don't want to spoil it for everybody. We're
And
going to keep that scene a secret, but that I will tell you that while we were writing the movie, um, we would take a break every once in a while and watch Mad Men scenes. The show for us played like a comedy, so we loved watching scenes where John Hamm's character was mean to his client and gave very flowery, eloquent, tangentially weird speeches that only I think Matthew Weiner and his staff could come up with. So that phrase, that line that you're talking about is reflective of the type of stuff we were watching on YouTube while we were writing the movie. And the
that's
tone of
very
and
fun.
sorry, the tone and the lighting too. Jerry, and Bill Pope frequently we would go to Mad Men and go, look, we're in this world. We want it to be a little more colorful and different. But the two of them really worked hard to take the look of Mad Men and then make it their own, and make it just a little brighter and a little more fun.
I love that. That's so interesting. And I would be remiss if I didn't talk about your most important role because obviously you're the writer and producer, but you're also the voice of newborn ravioli as well. So,
Tyler,
so
pay
how
attention.
special was it getting to, have your voice in this film and voice,
Oh,
the coolest character? Gonna be a
it
merch machine.
You know, that's what I'm hoping. Yeah. I was originally, I think, supposed to play the janitor in Amy Schumer's office in that scene, but I just thought, there was someone who was working with us, Greg, on the picture, and I thought he would do a better job, and he absolutely crushed it. But that credit you're talking about makes Jerry and I laugh a lot. He's credited as the voice of Teenage Ravioli, and I'm credited as the voice of Baby Ravioli. And that's just because we were in the edit room, doing 14-hour days, tired, and stepping up to the mic and making funny sounds. And then we thought, well, let's just keep it in. But Jerry and I are most proud of those two credits in the movie.